Okay, can you hear me back? Yep, cool. Please take a quick note of the content warning. I'm not going to go into super detail on any of this really, but this is a panel about nasty people doing nasty things to other people, so just be aware of that. The word curse in Japanese is nori, which is derived from the verb naru. It has kind of two origins. The first being the verb noru, which is to state or make a declaration. But it's also the kanji comes from the Chinese kanji for curse or spell. In Chinese, it's pronounced something like zhou. This kanji can also be read majinai, which means magic spell or manipulation, and I should really look at my notes and not the slide. This is kind of an old-fashioned reading. It's not really read that way anymore. If you want to use the term majinai, you would normally write it in hiragana rather than kanji. But if you use the honorific prefix o, so o majinai, it's always read as majinai, not noro. And that means a good luck charm. So adding the honorific transforms the meaning into basically the exact opposite. Curses have been around for a really long time in pretty much every culture, including Japan. To the point where divination rituals which could be used to curse people are mentioned in the actual origin myth of Japan. They are first referenced in the Nihon Shoki from the year 720, and the rituals themselves appear to predate Buddhism and its arrival in Japan. These rituals can be used as requests made to the gods, which can include, please do horrible things to my enemies. The influence of Chinese Taoism leads to the development of the shamanistic practice known as onmyodo in the late 7th century. From this period on, there was a lot of political unrest in Japan, and that meant that a lot of people wanted to eliminate certain rivals. However, both Buddhist and Shinto belief systems state that shedding blood pollutes your own body. So people were like, okay, if we can't shed blood, how do we get rid of these people some other way? Let's use magic. In the Heian era, records start to improve, so we get more written records of rituals and folklore, including those of curses. The supernatural was also an extremely popular subject for art, especially in the ukiyo-e woodblock prints, which are very popular and accessible. So we get a lot of visual representations of cursing and folklore relating to it. Once we get into the modern era, dissemination of stories becomes a lot easier as we have communication, television, radio, things like that. And people have always loved stories and will always love stories. So, the other thing people always love is causing harm to other people. So obviously, stories about causing harm to other people are spread worldwide. Of course, the internet made this even easier, and also meant that a lot more of them got translated, which allows people like you and me, who don't speak Japanese, to learn about them. A little bit more on onmyodo. It was a system of beliefs and rituals which were developed from the importation of Taoism and yin-yang philosophy from China. Onmyodo was taken so seriously in Japan that there were governmentally appointed official onmyoji, that's the practitioners, who were appointed to divine, predict, and protect the emperor. The most famous of these is Abe no Seimei, been to one of my folklore channels before, you will have heard of Abe no Seimei. He's a big deal. The official onmyoji were strictly forbidden from using their magic to do anything negative. Unofficial people were under no such restrictions. So if you wanted to get someone cursed, you just pop along to an unofficial one. On the other hand, Ashina Dorman was technically and officially governmentally appointed onmyoji, but he was a bit of a bad egg. He had a rivalry going with Abe no Seimei, and Dorman's boss, Fujiwara no Akimitsu, got him to curse Seimei's boss, Fujiwara no Michinaga, and all of Michinaga's daughters died from this curse. Seimei battled him using shikigami, or sort of mythical creatures that were under his command. And Dorman was exiled as a result. Abe no Seimei appears in a lot of stories of curse breaking, protection from magical creatures, and that sort of thing. You will hear from him again later in this book. Right. So you think it might be a smart idea to put a curse on somebody? I'll tell you how. I'll tell you why you shouldn't. The Kotori Bako. This is actually a very new story, even though it claims to be a very old method of cursing. The story comes from Tuchan. I read the translation of it on Tara Devlin's site Korobana. This story purports to be from someone who found a mysterious puzzle box under their house. And they brought it to a friend and said, "Hey, look at this cool thing I found." And the friend who was spiritually sensitive looked at it and went, "Don't touch that thing." The story goes that there was a village that was unhappy with the feudal lord that was in command of the area, and they wanted a way to take revenge upon this man. So they went to a local shaman and said, "How do we do this?" And the shaman said, "Well, I will teach you how to do it. I'll show you how it's done and how it works, but I suggest you don't do this." And the shaman built a complicated puzzle box and put in pieces of child sacrifices. Now, the number of children that you sacrifice to do this ranges from 1 up till 7. This shaman apparently did 8. I guess he just really wanted to prove his point. And as soon as he finished the box, he said, "Bring me a woman and a child." And the woman and a child were brought to him, they touched the box, they died instantly. Now, this box will kill any woman or child who touches it, or is close to it, lives in the house above where it's stored. The idea is to prevent a person from having any heirs. So a woman who can bear an heir is killed, any heirs that may have already been born are also killed. This box will just keep going. It will slowly lose power, but it will take up to 140 years for a 7-child box to lose its power. And once it's lost its power, you need to take it to a certain shrine and destroy it there. There is another story that says that actually the origin of this myth is from Korea, where a lot of women and children from a certain area were murdered during conflict, and they were put into a jar, and someone found the jar, didn't know what was in it, took it home, and their entire village started dying. Right. Why shouldn't you do this? It will kill anyone, any woman or child, like even members of your own family. You're not protected by this. Like I said, it takes up to 140 years to stop doing it. And you can only dispose of it at this certain shrine, which helpfully in the story it was called Oh Shrine. So I can't tell you where that is, I'm sorry. If you want to break it, you just have to keep it somewhere dark, somewhere damp, somewhere where no woman or child is going to find it. Wait for it to start working, take it to be destroyed. So, the kodoku. This is based on Chinese form of magic called Wu magic. In China, there are said to be 5 particular poisons, 5 particular venomous creatures. The centipede, the lizard, the scorpion, the snake, and the toad. And in a Chinese magic, you would put all of these creatures into the jar and see which one survives. Because the idea is, whichever one survives is therefore the strongest. The Japanese version, you just put a whole mess of these venomous creatures into a jar, up to 100 of them. But the idea is the same. You wait, find out which one is still living at the end. That's the most powerful one. That is now your kodoku. You then use the venom from that single creature to poison someone. That activates the curse. Now, what the curse does varies from story to story. It can cause someone to have very bad luck, it can kill them, or it can give you control of their body, or it means that you can seduce them. Owning a kodoku also brings you enormous wealth. And if you're thinking, that sounds pretty cool, you know, enormous wealth, powers of seduction, yeah, don't do it. If you don't constantly feed this creature, and I could not find out what you're supposed to feed this creature, but I'm going to assume it's not good. It will eat you alive. If you don't want to do that, well, if you don't want it to do that, you need to take all of the wealth that you have amassed since creating it and just dump it by the side of the road. Missing the bottom, it says, if you've angered your own kodoku, abandon all the wealth and benefits it has given you. If someone has put a kodoku curse upon you, you need to find out what kind of creature it was that survived, and then you need to find out the opposite sort of venom according to the Chinese philosophy, and take that. You can also use it as a curse by giving someone a kodoku and not telling them how to care for it, because that way they don't know that they have to abandon any wealth given to it, and it will just keep them. This one is probably the most famous, the Ushi no Kokumari, or the Crystal Shrine visit at the Hour of the Ox. There is a lot to do if you want to cast this curse. The Hour of the Ox is between 1 and 3 a.m. You need to go to certain shrines in particular. I think you can just do it in a forest, but there are certain shrines that are associated with this curse and therefore make it more effective. You need to create a straw doll that contains a piece of your target, like a hair clipping, fingernail clipping, maybe a photo of them, even just a piece of paper with their name written on it. You need to dress in a white kimono. Some will say that this needs to be worn in the opposite way to usual, so the way that is associated with burial. You need to cover your face in white powder or cinnabar powder. You need to twist your hair up into 3 pigtails and stiffen with mud. You need to place an upturned trivet. That's like a thing that you place pots on, and it's got 3 legs. You need to turn that upside down, put it on your head, stick candles on the 3 legs, light those. You need to wear these single-toothed geta. You need to put a mirror on the right side of your chest. You need to tuck a dagger into your obi. You need to hold a comb in your mouth. You need to get 5-inch nails, hammer them into your straw doll, into a tree, and you have to do this for 7 days in a row. Or, you go on the internet, and you pay someone to do it for you.
See witches.
What it does, bad thing. You will find that a lot of curses in Japanese folklore aren't very specific about the bad thing that happens. It's almost like if a bad thing happens, you can say, it's because I cursed you. Now, why should you not do this? There's a lot of things to do. You need to do all of those for 7 days in a row. Also, cinnabar, that's mercury oxide. You don't want to rub that on your face. And if someone sees you doing it, all the power of the curse is redirected straight onto you. Furthermore, if you perform this curse, it can turn you into a kijo, which is like a female oni. Oh, I didn't mention, this is very associated with women only. It is generally to take revenge when someone has jilted you. There is a particular story associated with this ritual, that of Hashihime. She sought revenge on her ex-husband, who jilted her for a younger, more attractive woman. She performed this ritual, she did all the steps, she did it for 7 days in a row, and she turned into a goddess of vengeance. She can be prayed to at bridges if you want to be, your ties to be cut with a certain person. If you're unhappy in a relationship and you want to end it, you go and pray to Hashihime at one of her bridges. There are several bridges associated with Hashihime. However, she's very jealous. Don't stand on her bridge and say another woman is beautiful. If you're a newlywed, don't cross her bridge. You need to go under it. And couples should not go near any shrine that is associated with Hashihime, or you risk breaking up. Now, the curse of the Ushi no Kokomari is still used today. A few years ago, in a town called Matsudo, someone found several of these straw dolls nailed up around a shrine, and they all had a certain name on them, and that name was Vladimir Putin. They found the perpetrator. It was a 72-year-old man. Now, doing this ritual is actually illegal in Japan. If they catch you, you can be arrested for it. It's regarded as threatening behavior. However, for some reason, this guy wasn't charged. In terms of breaking it, I couldn't find anything specific except in the story of Hashihime. She was defeated by our boy Abe no Seimei. She was attacking her husband and his new wife. Abe no Seimei created paper dolls representing these two people, and the curse affected the paper dolls and destroyed them instead of the individuals. Hashihime was thwarted, and she went to live under her bridge. Right, so, the Ikiryo. These are caused when you love or hate someone so obsessively that your spirit just kind of decides to get up and do something about it themselves. It's a strange phenomenon where a living person experiences such a powerful emotion that their spirit manifests outside of their body. The most famous Ikiryo story comes from the tale of Genji. Lady Rokujo was a widow who'd had an affair with Genji, and she was very jealous of his wife, Lady Aoi. Lady Rokujo started having these dreams where she was standing over Aoi's body at night, and Aoi started getting really, really sick. Even though Lady Rokujo didn't intentionally mean her harm, the jealousy that she felt was so strong that her spirit was going and attacking Aoi without her knowledge. Eventually she realized that that was what was happening. She tried to just kind of get over her grudge. She tried thinking positively towards Lady Aoi, but Lady Aoi was already so weakened by the curse that she did die. There was another story of a young man in Kyoto in the 1700s. A girl from his neighborhood fell in love with him, and she loved him so much that her spirit became an ikugyo, and it haunted him really aggressively, whispering love notes in his ear, violently grabbing him, moving him around, and he ended up falling ill and becoming bedridden from it. This can also happen intentionally. It may be one of the effects of the Ushinoko-kumari Mayuri ritual. There's also a specifically Okinawan ritual called the Ichijama, which can create an effect like the Ikiryo. So there are shamans called Yuta. They're not onmyoji. The practice originates from before any kind of onmyodo came to Okinawa. So their shamans are called Yuta, and they perform the Ichijama where they boil a doll that is called the Ichijama Utaki, and you recite the name of a body part. And then your Ikiryo will visit the person that you want to affect and give them a gift of food. And they think it's just you giving them this gift. If they eat the food, the body part whose name you were reciting will start to get painful and sore, illness will develop there, and eventually they will die. This can also be used on livestock, apparently. Why you shouldn't do this? You might not need to. You might start attacking people when you don't really wish them harm, you're just very jealous of them. Repeatedly separating your spirit and your body can be dangerous. It can lead to weakening of the body because the spirit is not inhabiting it to protect it. If it's caused by the Ichijama, specifically, you need to visit a Yuta. They will tie your thumbs together, hit them with a nail, and recite your flaws, and for some reason this drives the Ichijama away. I don't know if that works with livestock who don't have any thumbs. If it's just like a regular Ikiryo, the best way to stop it from happening is to just get over it. Probably the most powerful way of cursing someone is to die holding a really big grudge against them. And this will transform you into an onryo. It will allow you to torment and kill them and their family, anyone who happens to be nearby, anyone who comes into your house. It's a pretty big deal. You might recognize this kind of curse from certain J-horror films. Why you shouldn't do it? You're gonna die. Do you really want to die just to curse someone? And as I said, it can be pretty indiscriminate. Once you've died and the curse has started, you don't have any control over it anymore. You don't have control over who dies from it. So, how to break it? You want to use everything you can. Onryo are a big deal, they're very serious, so you want to use Orthodo, protective talismans, you want to try and get exercise, you want to have prayers. Generally, the most effective method is to get the angry spirit enshrined as a kami or a god. That usually makes them feel honored enough that they will stop with all their vengeance. I'm not sure why nobody tried this with Sadako from the Ring. Maybe they will one day, who knows? So, if an onryo is a famous, not just, a woman or some scrub, they can become a full-fledged god. A full-fledged god of vengeance. They can be responsible for things like pandemics, natural disasters, earthquakes, lightning strikes, things like that. Enshrining these guys doesn't tend to be quite enough. They need to be worshipped regularly. They want festivals. There are also some tatarigami who weren't originally onryo, like Gozu, who is a bull-headed sort of god creature. and the seven-headed serpent, the Yamato no Orochi. You may have heard of the Gion Festival in Kyoto. That was originally to placate Gozo. And there are three particularly famous onryo who I would define as tatarigami. Right. Emperor Sutoku. He was a former emperor of Japan. He reigned from 1123 to 1142. He actually abdicated the throne, retired, but after his successor, Emperor Konoe, also died at age 17 without any heirs. Sutoku got into a succession battle with his younger brother, Go Shirakawa. Sutoku lost this battle and actually took it fairly well. He took himself off to a Buddhist monastery, decided, I'm going to try and improve myself. He spent a lot of time in prayer, was asking for redemption. He hand wrote a whole load of sutras and sent them to Kyoto to his brother. And his brother didn't even open them, just went, these are obviously curses, and just got rid of them. To which Sutoku said, if it's curses you want, it's curses you'll get. He retreated again and just kind of became a crazy mountain hermit man. Let his hair and nails grow really long. And eventually he dies, and he becomes one of the three great onryo of Japan. 12 years later, I'm not sure why it took 12 years for him to do anything about it, but it did. 4 of Go Shirakawa's closest allies died. The warrior monks began uprisings. There was a plot to overthrow more allies that was brought to light, and a huge fire blazed through the imperial capital of Kyoto. And all the nobles went, well, obviously this is Sutoku's doing. So they had him enshrined. Things calmed down a little bit, but all the things that I mentioned did lead to the lessening of power of the emperor, and instead the shifting of the power system over to the shogun instead, leaving the emperor as more of a figurehead. Emperor Sutoku then became a protective deity because he'd been enshrined. He was feeling pretty chill about things after that. Sugawara no Michizane was born in 845. He was a very famous poet, described as the greatest composer of Chinese classical poetry in Japan ever. He reached the highest level of scholarship that was available in Japan. And he was appointed the ambassador to China after rising rapidly through the ranks of nobility. He in fact suggested closing the embassies, Chinese embassies, because it would then allow Japanese culture to flourish by itself instead of just copying Chinese culture, which they've been doing for a very long time. His daughter married the emperor's third son before that emperor retired. He became the Minister for the Right, which is the second highest rank in the Japanese court. And the Minister for the Left and a bunch of other people were kind of jealous of this, and they falsely accused Michizane of conspiring to put his son-in-law on the throne instead. Even though these accusations were false, they were serious enough that Michizane was exiled. He was exiled to like a hick town in the north. He was given a really crappy place to live, he wasn't given any money, and he ended up in abject poverty, absolute misery. The area was full of bandits, he was worried for his life all the time, and eventually he died and became an onryo. Floods, plagues, droughts, and earthquakes started to strike Kyoto. Conspirators and members of the imperial family started dying, including one by lightning strike. Lightning then struck the imperial hall itself, and people went, we got to take this seriously now, let's enshrine Sugawara no Michizane. And he calmed down. And now he's actually probably one of the most beloved kami in Japan. He's a god of learning, scholarship, honesty and sincerity, performing arts, agriculture, and dispelling false accusations. And then thirdly, Oh, I'm sorry about the slides. I did this in Google Slides and it hasn't converted very well. Taira no Masakado. He was a samurai of the Heian era, powerful warrior and a great leader. He was beheaded after being betrayed by his own friends and family. The legend goes that his head, which was stuck on a spike outside Kyoto, did not decompose, and actually started flying around the country seeking his body, which had not been given proper burial rites. Eventually, the head got tired, came to rest in the little town. They made a shrine for it. The shrine wasn't big enough, he still wasn't happy. There was a horrible plague that struck Edo, which is in Tokyo, so they made him a bigger shrine and declared him a full kami. The trouble stopped until, for some reason, they revoked his status as a kami, and the Ministry of Finance built upon the land of his shrine. And there were accidents, disasters, earthquakes, until 1984 he was once again declared a kami. His shrine still stands in the Tokyo Financial District. It is just a shrine in the middle of all these massive high-rise buildings. It was renovated a couple of years ago. They cut all his trees down. It was quite nice before that, and now it's really just stark and concrete. There were reports of mild accidents around this time, so he was like, well, you're not getting rid of my shrine, but you are messing with it, so watch how you go. People still pray to him today. It's a popular site to visit. I have been there. I went before they cut the trees down. It was nice. It's also associated with frogs. There's lots of little frog statues people leave around the shrine. It's quite cute. He's got his own name. What's that all about? Okay. Apparently he has his own bank account as well. just there. Right. There are some simpler and more modern methods of engaging in curses or curse-like behaviour. Quite a few shrines will offer a ceremony called enkiri, which is to do with cutting. So you can do this if you want to cut ties with someone that you feel is a negative influence in your life, or if you want to cut a bad habit from your life, say you smoke and stuff like that, you're going to cut your ties with cigarettes. But, again, this could be used in a negative way if you're not telling the person why you're cutting ties with someone. If you're like, well, I don't want this person to inherit my money, so I'm going to cut ties with them, that kind of thing. It could be regarded as a curse. The wara ningyo, the straw dolls that I mentioned in Uchi no Kokomaeri, there are milder curses that you can form with these. If you nail one upside down to someone's door, that will just bring them some general bad luck. On the other hand, they can also be used like the katashiro, the paper dolls created by Abe no Seimei. If you believe that you have been cursed, you can create a wara ningyo of yourself, and that will take on the negative effects of the curse, so it shouldn't affect you. References to the wara ningyo or similar rituals exist from year 587 onwards. Puppet magic like this is common in a lot of folklore around the world. You may associate it with the voodoo doll, which is a misnomer, but we won't get into that. But also puppets were used a lot by British witches as well. You can get someone to curse someone for you. Just go on the internet and be like, here's some money, please curse them. And they will say, absolutely, I will do that. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mention, but yeah, for the Ushi no Kokumari, you can buy kits to do that online as well. They will provide you with the triggers and the candles and the nails and the ningyo, and wara ningyo and everything like that. You can curse someone by accident. Again, if you just have a really strong grudge against someone, that can bring bad luck upon that person. So don't hold grudges, be nice. If you want to do some cursing, you want to go to Kyoto. Pretty much all the shrines that are famous for cursing are in Kyoto. The top spot for the Ushi no Kokomari and the main location that is associated with the myth of Hashihime is Kikune Shrine. Supposedly, the priests of the shrine are from a family that was originally ox-headed monsters that slowly over time became human. Associated with general something. Can't read it. I think it's probably just associated with general severance rituals. Jishu Jinja Shrine. Jinja just means shrine. Jishu Shrine is part of the Kiyomizadera temple complex. This is also associated with the Ushi no Kokomari. It's dedicated to a kami who's known as Okage Myojin. They're a wish-granting kami. Is especially associated with wishes for love or breakups. Anything to do with relationships, good or bad. You can just about see here, that is the love stone. I think, if I remember the ritual rightly, you're supposed to touch the stone, close your eyes and walk 7 steps, and if you hit another stone, your wish is going to be granted. There's also the Yasui Konparigo Shrine, which is the home of the wish-granting rock. That is a picture of it there. What you do is you write your wish down on a piece of paper, you stick it to the rock, and then you crawl through the hole that is in the middle of the rock. It's quite a small hole. Again, this is particularly associated with love and relationships, and therefore it tends to be women that like to use this rock, which is good, because women in Japan are quite small and can get through the hole. Priests will have a look at what you've written on the wishes, and if they don't like what they see, they will take it off. But as you can see, there's a lot of wishes. So if you want to do a little bit of a curse, maybe slip it underneath someone else's wish, or you could not do that because it's not very nice. The Kitano Tenmangu Shrine was in fact created to appease a curse. This is one of the shrines that enshrines Sugawara no Michizane, who, as we have mentioned, is one of the 3 great mental spirits. This shrine is actually mostly associated with breaking curses rather than making them, but I thought it was worth mentioning here anyway. Yeah. There we go. Did you think I meant swearing? No. That's fine, I got you anyway. It is relevant. There is a festival called the Akutai Matsuri, where you go and you swear. You just yell real loud and call everyone an idiot. There are various locations where this happens. There's the Atago Shrine in Kasuma in Ibaraki Prefecture, the Oiwa Tamonin-sai Shoji Temple, Gion Shrine, Kyoto, Hinokizawa Dake Shrine in Bando Village in Ueno, and Zukoizan in Kiyomizadera. It usually happens on New Year's Eve, starts at 11 PM. You walk up to the shrine, yelling as loud as you can, saying things like, "You're an idiot," or "Bakayaro," sorry. Specifically, they say you're allowed to shout anything except words like bingo or dorobo, because for some reason the bo sound is unlucky to do for this. I find 2 origins for this festival. One of them is that peasants who are unhappy with their feudal lords would get to air their grievances very, very loudly on this one night a year. but it also might be related to a yokai called the Baku, which is the dream eater. This yokai is supposed to eat your nightmares and therefore bring you good luck. And a lot of the Akutai Matsuri festivals also will feature omamori, protective charms that feature the Baku. They'll allow you to pray to the Baku and say, please eat my bad luck, give me good dreams for the new year, especially since good dreams on New Year's Eve are especially associated with good luck for the entire coming year. Oh, also, if you shout the loudest, you get 10,000 yen. So there are some quite famous curses, one of which is the curse of the Muramasa blades. Muramasa is possibly the most famous swordsmith in Japanese history, possibly worldwide history. It's essentially between him and Masamune, who Muramasa studied underneath. These swords are famous for their extreme sharpness, their extreme quality. But rumors started that the swords were cursed, that they thirsted for blood, you couldn't draw one without drawing blood with it, or it would never be satisfied, or it possessed the user and made them go into a bloodthirsty frenzy. Probably because they were such good swords that they were used to kill a lot of people. It also gives them a cultural cachet, it gives them a Arachne aura. You know, you meet some samurai on the street, you start having a bit of argy-bargy with them, draws his blade and says, this is a Muramasa, and you're like, Tokugawa Ieyasu, who was the shogun for a long time, thought that they were responsible for killing a few too many of his ancestors and allies, and made it illegal to own them. He once accidentally cut himself on a Naginata blade held by someone else and said, haha, must be a Muramasa, and the guy said, yeah, you're right. There was a magistrate in Nagasaki who was discovered to own 24 blades, and Ieyasu demanded that he kill himself. However, katana were very expensive and difficult to own, so samurai who had Muramasa blades would quite often just have the signature or the defining features, because there are a lot of very specific features to Muramasa blades, that they'd have them ground out or made unrecognizable in some way. Coming up to the modern era, we have some new curses. In 1985, the Hanshin Tigers, a not very good baseball team, had a surprise win. And to celebrate, the people of Osaka decided they would start jumping off a bridge into the Dotonbori River. Specifically, anyone who looked like one of the players of the team got thrown in. Unfortunately, there was a player called Randy Bass, who was a Caucasian guy with a beard, and they didn't have any Caucasian guys with beard. So what they did was they took one of the Colonel Sanders statues that are outside almost every KFC you'll find in Japan, and they chucked that in the river instead. Colonel Sanders didn't like that. The Hanshin Tigers did absolutely terribly for 18 years, and this is attributed to the curse of Colonel Sanders, and it was said that it would only be lifted when the statue was recovered. They tried dragging the river and they couldn't find it. After a little while, the Tigers did start doing a bit better, not that well. Other KFC restaurants would start bolting down or chaining up their statues because they didn't want this to happen again. People kept on jumping in the river whenever there was a famous sporting win, until someone drowned in 2003, and Osaka officials went, we should probably put a stop to that. The statue was found in 2009. That's it there, in the state that it was found in. It was missing a hand and its glasses, so the curse was supposedly still in state. until they gave it a new hand, new glasses, and returned it to KFC in 2023. The restaurant no longer exists, but a cardboard cutout of this specific statue was placed in the nearby KFC for an important baseball game. The statue was given an official burial in 2024 because it was in such a state they couldn't be bothered to maintain it any longer. We'll see how that works out for the Hanshin Tigers. The Teke Teke. It's not clear when this legend began. It's definitely modern, and most stories place it somewhere in Hokkaido. There's several variations. Some say she's a schoolgirl who was accidentally killed on the train tracks. Some say it was a woman who was violated by American soldiers and ended her own life on the tracks. But the stories all agree that what happens to her is that she was cut in half by an oncoming train and left to die instead of people responding to her cries for help. The story goes on to say a young man saw a pretty girl looking at him from the station window and beckoning to him. He goes to meet her, but as he enters the room, he sees that her lower half is missing. Her torso is balanced on the window frame. He goes to flee, but she follows him. She moves incredibly fast by running on her hands, which make a kind of slapping sound that sounds like. And there's a sickle tucked in her mouth. When she catches up with him, she cuts the poor man in half like her and leaves him to die. By the way, when you hear this legend, she's going to visit you. That's right, I just cursed you. It's alright, I'm going to tell you how to break it. She is going to visit you in a dream, apparently, and she will ask you if you need your legs. The correct answer to this is, yes, I need my legs. And when she asks you, who told you her story, you do not say me. You give her the name Kashima Reiko, which is supposedly her own name. Only then will she let you live. The internet's cursed. Of course it is. I think we all knew that. This is another piece of internet folklore. Probably originates from the 1990s, probably around the late 1990s, when Flash animations were very popular. There was a Flash animation that told a story of someone being hit by the curse. What happens is you're browsing the internet, first you'll get a pop-up that says, do you like it? You can click yes. It will then go, do you like the red room? And you can't click away. You will then receive a list of victims of the red room. What happens next is that you get found the next day, your room is red. Guess what it's red with? This story is possibly connected with an actual horrible murder that happened. The Sasebo slashing, where at an elementary school in a town called Sasebo, an 11-year-old girl killed a 12-year-old girl with a box cutter. Supposedly, this 11-year-old, who's only known as Girl A, had the Red Room animation website bookmarked on her computer. '26 is cursed. This is a specific belief to Japan, even though it relates to the Chinese zodiac. Fire horse years are not seen as unlucky in China, only in Japan. However, the Chinese zodiac, if you're not familiar, has 12 animals and 5 elements. Each animal is paired with an element, and therefore you have a cycle of 60 years. This year is a fire horse year. The elements are wood, metal, fire, water, and earth. I'm not going to try and name the animals because I will inevitably forget one. Fire horse years are fast-moving like a horse and filled with drastic change like the effects of fire. Significant fires are also said to take place in fire horse years. FYI, if you know your English history, 1666 was a fire horse year. Women who are born in fire horse years are said to be willful and bad-tempered and lead to their husbands having shorter lives, sometimes because they kill them. This means that birth rates actually plummet during fire horse years because nobody wants to be responsible for having a fire horse daughter. This is partly related to a legend. In 1683, Yaoya no Osichi, who was the daughter of a greengrocer, was evacuated to a temple during a fire in her area, and she became besotted with a handsome young priest who was working at that temple. And she decided that the best way to try and see this priest again was to set some fires and get evacuated back to the temple. She got caught. The judge asked her if she was 15 or 16, and she foolishly said 16. If she had been 15, she would have been exiled. Because she was 16, she was felt the age of criminal responsibility and was therefore sentenced to be burned at the stake. Now, supposedly, she was born in 1666. The maths doesn't match it. It doesn't get in the way of a good story. Weirdly enough, there is evidence of a Yaoya no Osichi being born in 1666, so the bit of the myth that doesn't fit with the numbers is actually when the fires were set. Go figure. So, you want to protect yourself from all this stuff I've been talking about. There's a few ways to do this. They are mostly to do with Shinto, which is Japan's, we'll say indigenous faith system, but it's more complicated than that, but it's what existed before Buddhism, certainly, and has been syncretized with it. You can get ofuda and omamori. This is an ofuda here. It's a strip of paper with certain kanji on it, which has been blessed. Generally, you want to stick those up around your house. Or you can get an omamori, which is one of these like little cloth sachets. Contains something inside it. You're not supposed to open them, so I can't tell you what's inside it. But they are specific to various things. Like you can get one for luck in your driving test. You can get one for luck in exams. You can get ones that are specifically for protection against negativity. If you think you have been cursed, or even if you just want to generally get rid of your negativity, there is the Oharai ritual. This is performed generally twice a year on June 30th and December 30th or 31st, somewhere around the New Year period. And anyone can go and get this done. You will see the priest will wave this particular implement that has these paper streamers hanging from it, and that is to sort of brush or beat away the bad luck from you. You will also see around various shrines and temples there are these large circular rings made of straw, and you need to walk through them in a very specific pattern in order to perform the oharai upon yourself and clean away your bad luck. If you think you've specifically been cursed or are experiencing negativity, you can also specially request that the Shinto priest perform this upon you. You may be familiar with the legend of Sadako and the 1,000 paper cranes. The 1,000 paper crane ritual is still very popular today. It is a wish-granting ritual where you fold 1,000 origami cranes, and it can grant wishes, it can protect you, and it can help to heal. Or you can put salt around your house. Salt is pretty much a universal symbol of purification and protection in cultures all around the world, and Japan is no exception. Specifically for Shinto, they have it in these bowls and in this conical shape. You'll see those on the little tiny shrines that people have in their houses. They will be put on ancestors' altars, things like that. Salt is just generally regarded as something that will draw away bad luck, bad influence, negativity. And most importantly, don't hold grudges. Just be nice to each other. Be nice to people, hopefully they won't curse you. If you're nice to people, hopefully you won't curse them. It's that simple. And that's just my references and suggestions for further reading or watching, people want to grab a photo of that, or I will generally pop these slides up on the Facebook page and the Discord once I can mention it. Thank you very much again.